This video is sponsored by Aquashine Exteriors, professional jet washing and cleaning services across Bournemouth, Christchurch and Poole, including Dorset, Hampshire and Wiltshire. Are you feeling it's time to get that driveway nice and shiny for when you come home? Or are you wanting to get that guttering tidied up and spotless again? They deliver this, plus much, much more. Please head into the description below where you'll find their details for their website, including the socials, Facebook and Instagram. You also need to find their before and after portfolio. You can also call them on 07503 998 088 for a free quotation. Don't wait till next week. Don't think you'll do it another day. Pick up the phone, give them a call, check them out. Hello and welcome to Cherries Red Army. Wherever you are in the world, we hope you're having a fantastic week and you're joining us for what is our final match preview in the Premier League this season. And Goodison Park is no stranger to relegation battles in the previous history. Bournemouth, remember, had to win at Goodison Park. We did, but results went our way a few seasons ago. This time round, it's the Toffees that are fighting for their lives, and we're going to be talking about it tonight. We've got a Bournemouth fan, we've got an Everton fan, we've got you in the chat. Please do use the interactive chat. Tell us how you're feeling. Going to discuss what the lineups are going to look like, your match predictions, and everything in between. Come on, subscribe to Cherries Red Army. Help us get to 1.6k, and also hit the like button on this video. If you're watching this video back on replay, thank you very much, and please use those comments. Tell us who's joining us right now live on YouTube and Twitter, and we'll show your name on the screen in just a bit. Right, let's get our guests on. Bournemouth, we're going up north on Sunday. Everton, it's in their hands a little bit, but they might need to still win. Let's get on with the match preview.
Cheeky one, square, and
Good evening, Jon Spark. It's our final match preview. Welcome to the channel as always. We'll never know what the symbol was going to be for those draws in that intro image we just seen. You were keen to find out. It didn't happen. How are you doing, mate?
Yeah, I'm good, thank you. Bar some incredible athleticism and a Kiefer Moore sitter missed. We would have found out, but unfortunately not. But yeah, thank you very much for having me on again. And yeah, it's the build up to another off season, or the worst time of the year, I think. Although I suppose it depends on how well your team does, really, in the season for that one.
Our other guest, he's been on before. He's an opposition view on this match preview. It's Ian Mills from Across the Park podcast, who's also got their own content, which we'll talk about a little bit later ahead of this fixture. Ian, how you doing? Nervous yet?
Mate, we spoke yesterday. We're going to do a preview show, which you recorded for my channel. I was nervous yesterday. I'm even more nervous tonight. We're on Thursday evening. I just want Sunday to be here. I'm not too sure whether you lads, well, I'm sure you do know the feeling because you came to Goodison, albeit in different circumstances, needing a win. And so you know what it's like to go into the last game of the season and needing to win. I'm really, really nervous, but I'm sure we'll get into that, and I'm pretty sure you'll make me feel even more nervous, Kirk, by the end of this show.
I don't know, you might go into this fixture very confident once you hear about our current form and players we might or might not have available. But let's get stuck into the preview. That's the current Premier League table. Southampton, they're already gone. They are in the Championship. Leeds, Leicester, Everton, they feel 19th, 18th and 17th. They're fighting for their lives. Two of them are going to go by the end of play on Sunday. And Bournemouth currently in 15th. We could potentially get up to 13th, potentially worst case scenario, 16th. Ian, 17th. I'm sure this wasn't part of the plan at the start of the season.
No, look, what I say tonight, I really don't mean to be disrespectful, so I hope no Bournemouth fan does take it disrespectful. But when the fixtures came out, we looked at Bournemouth at home and we thought that could be a big one. And this is what, mid-June last season, we thought that both teams might need to to win the game. Bournemouth have done absolutely. You guys have done brilliant from November, from when we last spoke pre-World Cup, to get to where you're a month away from it and be out of it. I know last 3 games maybe not been too comfortable for you guys, but you've been brilliant. And for me to look at this last game now, and again have Bournemouth at home, it's probably where I plan to be. And some Evertonians might not like that, but we go into this 22-23 season without the guy who wore the heart on his sleeve, the Brazilian number 9 in Richarlison, who's not pulled up trees as Spurs, but for Everton, he was such a good player. And last season, he put the club on his back and he ran through brick walls. And not only when you sold him did you sell the goals, you sold that. You sold the hard work, you sold the work rate, you sold the desire, and we didn't really replace that. Transfer window closes in August or September, and I think a lot of Blues maybe realised that and thought we were in for a bad season. Frank Lampard. Now, Lampard was one of those people who, because of who he replaced, he was in such a good position with supporters. We gravitated to him and we wanted him to do so well. For Bournemouth fans who don't know, or Blues who are new watching this, he replaced Rafa Benitez, and that gave him the golden egg straight away, because we wanted to believe in Frank. We had to believe in Frank. We had to. So when he kept us up last season, we wanted him to have a little bit of money in the summer. We wanted him to build, and we wanted to trust him and maybe see what he can do. By the time you guys beat us 7-1 on aggregate in November, it was very, very clear that he wasn't the man. He was arguably wrongly given 4 or 5 more games after the World Cup. We go into a team I don't like, and I know you don't like, in Southampton. They beat us at Goodison in January, and the crowd really, really turned in January, really turned. I think Soccer Saturday showed "You're not fit to wear the shirt" chants at full time when we got beat, and there was protests. So, look, I seen this game being big coming. I thought that this game, when I seen it, would be massive. I didn't quite realise how big it would be, and I think Everton are really, really now in a situation where it's win or bust. We cannot rely on other teams. And again, you guys have been here. You know how it feels. It's not a nice situation to be in.
It's not a nice situation to be in. 1 relegation for us in our Premier League history. We'll have 7, our 7th season next season. Let's just go into the chat. Chris Hubble, thanks for joining us. You've been with us all season, like many other fans. Thank you very much. Aaron K, how are you doing? Stephen Dyer up north, thank you very much. Mark Cole, always great to see you on a match day last weekend. Mark Singleton, thank you very much. Cameron, going to get those score predictions later on. We've also got Matthew Gale as well. And look, it's been a roller coaster for us as well, John. We've had management change. We've had an ownership change. We've seen this league open itself up. Look at those teams that are down there. There are some big sides. Leicester City, they won the Premier League 6-7 years ago. Everton, they've never not been outside the Premier League. And 2 are going to go on Saturday and Sunday. 2 are going to go. And yeah, it's amazing. And the sort of how the league sort of faded with so many teams gave us an opportunity to stay up, and we had our purple patch, and we're going to be playing Premier League football next season, and 2 or 3 teams are not.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was kind of funny for a lot of Bournemouth fans. I think looking at the fixture list as it came out, and we started at home to Villa and we ended away to Everton, which is exactly what bookmarked our 5 years in the Premier League in total. Of course, during that period, we've done exactly the opposite of what we did in that 5 period. We beat Aston Villa at home on the first day, which is the opposite of last time. We're staying up, which is the opposite of what happened against Everton last time round. But of course, we won that game against Everton last time round. So if the pattern trends, then I'd expect a loss. But with a lot of things going on, bigger than just the game itself, there's so much pressure, so much nervousness. I've been doing, as you know, Kurt, the regular videos with the Beat the Drop group, and talking to the Leeds fans, the Leicester fan, and the Everton fan that's on that. The gamut of emotions, and at this point, it's for all 3 of them, it's nigh on acceptance because of how disappointed they are with whether it be the ownership, whether it be the manager, whether it be the squad and the players, whether it be the effort. So much has to have gone wrong for the teams that are down there to be down there. And when you consider this is the first season in quite some time, and it doesn't happen very often when all three promoted sides are staying up, that means there are some very big sides that have to go down to replace them. Southampton has decent pedigree in the Premier League, but Leeds in the top flight experience, Leicester have won the Premier League, Everton are the biggest club down there by some distance. And I worry about Everton financially. I really do worry about, if they go down, how significant this is going to be in terms of even the takeover, because there's a takeover that's due to happen and they need it because of the Russian money that's being sort of blocked, or one of the ownerships is being sanctioned by the government because they're Russian backed. I don't envy Everton fans at all, and obviously they've been through a lot of rubbish over the last few years, but this would be a hell of a low, and I do feel as though Everton are the one team that I feel are most at risk if they go down, and that's why I would prefer them to stay up, because it's not nice to see, particularly as a team like Bournemouth. We know what it's like to be in that position, and we were celebrating the hands in the buckets recently at the Winter Gardens, and with the money that's going on in football now, you need a lot more than the spare change of a few thousand people to keep a football club afloat.
What are you worried about then, Ian? I mean, are you worried about how difficult the Championship is to get out of it? Are you worried about a stadium that's half built? Are you worried about the current ownership and not maybe being able to convert that ownership into a new one? What's the real concern for Everton fans? I
think the real concern, Kirk, is, I think, John, you're really spot on what you're saying there. I think there's a really, really big risk there for Everton football. I think if Everton do go down, I think you may see a situation of a Sheffield Wednesday, of a Leeds in the early noughties, where you just haven't got the stability, you haven't got the capability to get back up. I don't think, and again, I think there's teams like a Watford maybe who will go down and come back up because the budget allows it and the structure allows it. I don't think Everton are anywhere near that. I think this has become a real shock to everybody concerned with the football club. If Everton go down, I think it's a disaster waiting to happen. I think you may see one of the biggest clubs in England maybe fall, and for me that's the concern, that there's no structure, that the board they can't attend home games due to safety reasons, that the fans don't believe in the board that much, that for safety reasons they cannot attend home games. The belief in the club is not there from the fan base. So if the team are not good enough to keep the club in the Premier League, I think it's got the recipe for absolute disaster. And you guys must have seen it as well, that we've potentially breached financial fair play rules, and the Premier League have sent this to a panel to look at. That could be a points deduction. Now, if we drop into the Football League, the sanction there could be even greater than what it would be in the Premier League, because the rules there are tighter. You can't breach to the level that we've breached in the Championship and get away with it. We've seen Derby County. Like, Derby put up a really big fight I think it was last year, to try and stay up, but they were up against the time because of what happened to them. And that's the fear for me, guys. That really is the fear, that if we go down and what's to come. I'm looking at the immediate future. The immediate future is, can you finish the stadium? Can you put a football club into that stadium? Is probably maybe exaggerating a little bit, but for me the fear is there that if Everton go down and we can't function to the level that we need to function. So for me, it's all on the line on Sunday, and I really, really hope, guys, that you turn up flip-flops on, because we need it.
And big clubs have gone before. I said this the other day in another video. Newcastle have gone, West Ham have gone. Look, they've come back, but it's not been easy. I'm going to come to you, John, and let's sort of focus what's happening on the pitch. I'm sure Ian doesn't want to talk about this much, but back in November, Bournemouth played Everton back-to-back in the EFL Cup and in the league. They were terrible midweek in the EFL Cup. I thought they would be better at the weekend in the league. They weren't. It was one of our easiest wins of the season. I think Leeds was pretty easy as well. Comfortable day. Ended up being a big win for Gary O'Neill as well, because apparently that helped him be in a position to get this gig full time. A comfortable win for the Cherries, 3-0. We went into the World Cup off the back of a win.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was a point, I think, of those two games, and Ian has mentioned it, that really did feel like it was the last days of Frank Lampard in what I thought would happen, because it wasn't really that much of a changed squad for the cup game. We did pretty much I think we made 8 changes, something equivalent of, it wasn't quite the B team, but it was pretty close. And it was a comfortable victory. And then obviously the Premier League game, that was another comfortable victory. And Frank Lampard, I don't really rate he's not a modern day manager. He's not a coach. He's a vibes guy, and you need to be able to actually improve players to be a manager nowadays. And he's not shown that at anywhere he's been. So, the quicker they got Frank Lampard out, the better. It turns out they gave him a few more games, which is a bit silly, and it's really cost them in the end. But, you've got to look at the squad as well, and that as soon as you sort of, particularly in January when they didn't really bring anyone in, I don't think they made a single signing in January, as much as there were players that were due to come in, but obviously things turned around with a few players, which was terrible news for them at the time. The squad just doesn't have the strength as what you would expect of a team with the stature of a club like Everton. I mean, you've only got to look at, as soon as Dominic Calvert-Lewin's unavailable, and it looks like he's unavailable today for the game on Sunday, who's your next striker off the rack? Neil Maupay. And I'm sure he works hard, but he's not a Premier League striker. He just isn't. There's no one in the Everton squad that takes more shots per game or has a higher XG per 90. How many goals has he got this season? 1. There is definitely quality there, and from earlier on in the season, the likes of Pickford, of Cody, of Tarkowski were keeping clean sheets when they didn't necessarily really, I say, deserve it. The XG against was ridiculous, and yet they were like the 3rd strongest team defensively in the league. That wasn't going to last very long, and things have just it's become very difficult for them to get results. But Dyche comes in, he has an effect. The effect doesn't last as long as you think it will, but they are at least in a position now in which to take advantage of the fact they are in the best position and have, on paper, the easiest fixture of the 3 that are down there. So, I think that there certainly needs to be improvements on a lot of the recent performances, and obviously that performance against us on the reverse from Everton to be able to get the result against us, because flip-flops we might be in, but you can relax pretty well in flip-flops. Versus the stress that the Everton players and fans will be under, it makes for an odd concoction of a match that it could become.
Ian, fast forward then. Sean Dyche comes in, hits the ground running, gets a win against Arsenal. It's 4 wins now for you. I think 7 wins all season as a football team. You got a massive win against Brighton a few weeks ago. And then you got a draw late on at Molineux last week. And that's put you in the driving seat, sort of, where it's in your hands. Talk to us about that 1-1 at Molineux and the weeks leading up to it.
I think the point itself is not a big point, because it doesn't separate us from the other 2. What I do think, I think psychologically, the fact those Everton players were rolled off by the away ends, and the Everton players have walked into the dressing room and they've probably been buoyed by a last minute equaliser. I think the psychological aspect of getting a point there is massive. The point itself, like I said, maybe doesn't mean a lot. Look, let's be honest. Leicester would swap with us in a heartbeat. Leeds would swap with us in a heartbeat. They would want their destiny in their own hands this Sunday. Everton have got it. And I told you, Kirk, on a show that we've done this week to be released on Saturday, that I do not take you guys lightly. I really don't. I don't think the narrative that some media channels are putting out there, and possibly some Evertonians are thinking that we're comfortable, I don't think that's the case. I know you guys have lost the last 3. I also understand that your manager is possibly under a little bit of pressure at the moment, that he probably doesn't want to end the season on a loss. And I think Bournemouth will come to Goodison and possibly relish the atmosphere, and possibly relish the fact that they could be the pantomime villains on Sky Sports, if you will. So it's not a foregone conclusion. It's great that we have to win, and that's it. It's great that we have to win and we don't have to look who else is winning. If we win, we're fine. It's not as simple for me as Everton win. It really isn't. And we've got massive injuries. We've got no strikers. And by that, I mean, there's no Dominic Calvert-Lewin. He's injured. To play Neil Maupay, I'd rather play you, John, to be honest, over Neil Maupay. We've got no fullbacks. All 4 fullbacks are injured, and Ben Godfrey, who can cover fullback, is also injured. So it's going to be, I think the manager will be forced into a defensive setup of 3 centre-halves having to play the game. And I don't think the manager or me, I don't want to play that system. I don't want to go into Bournemouth at home having to win with 3 centre-halves. We're going to be forced into that. And maybe that will play into your hands. But again, I'm really, really praying flip-flops are on. That's a massive part of this. And some Evertonians watching this may not like the fact that I'm saying that, but in my opinion, that we have to rely on Bournemouth having the flip-flops on.
John, what's your best attributes if you're a striker? Just because Ian's put it out there. I mean, are we going to put the ball in the box, or do you want it work through between the lines? How do you want your chances to come inside the box?
Unfortunately, you've picked. I'd be even worse off injury record than Dominic Calvert-Lewin. I've done both my ACLs, so unfortunately, you could have picked Kirk. I think Kirk would have been doing all right. Kirk, how are you in the box? You a bit of the fox in the box?
Yeah, I was a Danjuma type wide player that liked to come inside.
Start on the left, hit it on with your right, curl it in the far corner. Yeah,
Jaden Anthony, if I want to keep it more present.
Yeah, I think it's. I think Ian's absolutely right. And in terms of the injury record I was looking at, I mean, you've got what's down on PremierInjuries.com. You've got 10 injuries, which is not good to see. Yeah. But Mikalenko is a doubt, although I think that's been confirmed that he's out. I'm not sure. Godfrey, obviously.
He's touching goal, I think, John. He's touching goal. He's got a groin injury. Yeah, but at the moment, the fact that we're playing McNeil, who's got the most assists and goals, had to play left back because of Mikalenko. So we absolutely need to push McNeil more forward on Sunday.
Ian, this is SofaScore's predicted lineup for the weekend. Not sure if you can see it clearly, but it does have McNeil in a 3-5-1-1 off the left, and he is your best goal return and assist return player. Iwobi's in there as well, actually, because he's got good numbers from assists. But how far is that off the team then for Sunday?
Yeah, if Mikalenko's out, that will be the team. He's got no choice but to play 3 centre-halves because the only wing-backs we can play would be wingers, and they have to be protected by a Drissagana guy in the centre midfield and 3 centre-halves. I think that formation could possibly still look, make no bones about it, the crowd will make Everton attack in the first 10, 15, 20 minutes. The crowd will demand that Everton attack Bournemouth in the first 15, 20 minutes. I think that formation will allow it. I think if we get to 25 minutes and it's 0-0, I think that's where the nerves come in. I think Bournemouth may come into the game a little bit more, but Everton have to score in that first 15, 20 minutes. And with Damari Gray up front, who shoots on sight, he's behind Dwight McNeil. He's our second leading goal scorer, albeit with a pathetic number of I think it's 5 or 6, but he's up there and he'll shoot on sight. He'll try and put shots in from 15, 20 yards. If we can get Dwight McNeil up the pitch and cover him, he will put crosses in. He's a winger who puts first-time crosses in. He won't try and beat your right back. He will try and hit it first time. And that can cause chaos, as you know, with Abdoulaye Doucouré in there as well. So that formation and that team is probably the most likely of it all if Vitaly Mikalenko is unfit. If Mikalenko plays, I'll see a 4-4-2, and you'll push McNeil to hug the touchline and try and get crosses in. Because, look, I'll be honest, Everton have to score in the first half. We cannot go into 0-0 at half-time and thinking about 2 other games. Everton have to score in the first half.
Yeah. Ian, think about your scoreline, because I'm going to come to that in a moment before we see you out on this match preview. So do think about that. But, John, they don't have a lot of goal scorers in their side, but I did say to Ian on their match preview that's coming out on Across the Park podcast on Saturday, they might not need to, John, because in the last 12 games, we've lost 6 games and we've only scored once in those 6 games that we've lost, and one goal scored, 15 conceded. So they've got to come out there. They've got to try and win the fixture. How Leicester got that draw against Newcastle, they've got to go into the fixture trying to win it.
Yeah, absolutely. Ian's not the first Everton fan I've spoken to that has talking about they've got to score in the first 15 minutes. The good news for them is that Bournemouth's worst times in a game in terms of goals conceded are the first 15 and the last 15, conceded 16 goals in each of those periods. So, Everton would be smart to go all out. But at the same time, depending on what players that we have fit and playing, we've got players that can counterattack very well. So it does make things very interesting if the game opens up early. And then, you've just got to look at Everton's recent record against Bournemouth. Isn't very good. In the last 4, it's 4 defeats. But going back further, it's a lot more Everton favoured. And then even if they do, even if the result doesn't go Everton's way, even if it's a draw, they're not out of it. Obviously, you don't want to have to rely on other teams failing to perform. But But Leeds need to beat Tottenham by a 3-goal difference if Everton draw, and obviously Leicester need to beat West Ham. And based on how Leicester did against Newcastle and how West Ham did against Leeds, I can't see that happening for the life of me. So I'm still massively favouring Everton regardless of the result of this game, but they have no guarantees, and it is going to be it's going to be fascinating what happens as an outside observer. But thank God I'm not involved directly in it.
Right, that score prediction's coming from Ian very, very soon. But I did say to Ian, there is a scenario where both teams could get a result on the day. Both teams could be happy and we could all go away and enjoy the summer. What happens if it all goes a bit pear-shaped, though, for Everton? Because us Bournemouth fans are coming to Goodison Park. We know we're safe. But if it goes pear-shaped for you, what could happen inside the stadium on the day?
I'll be honest with you. There was massive protests in January when Southampton beat us. It put us into I think it put us bottom of the league actually in January. The manager was under pressure. The board were under pressure. The fans stayed behind and protested. Since that game, apart from the last 2 home games, because the protest have withdrew for the team's sake, there's been a march to the ground every home game to oust this board, to say they don't believe in the direction of the football club. And it's been thousands and thousands of fans who are doing it. The atmosphere around the club is not good. The fans are divided. The only thing that the fans have got that come together is that we want Everton Football Club to win on Sunday and stay in the Premier League. If it doesn't happen, I'll be honest with you, the fans will tear the grounds out. The fans will tear the grounds out. It will not be pleasant. This football club, in my opinion, has been really, really ran into the ground. I think, how do you spend £600 billion and get worse? How do you have 8 different managers and 3 different director of footballs? And how do you call that any sort of strategy? And I think all of that has come home now to the fan base, or some of the fan base, where there's an awful lot of anger. The Crystal Palace game last May, where I'm sure you guys watched on TV, where Everton got out of it, and that there were scenes of joy and there were scenes of fans on the pitch. That will not be the case even if Everton win. Unless Everton win in the 95th minute and emotion carries you onto that pitch to celebrate, that won't happen. Fans are really, really not happy with how this football club is being run, how the team have got us into the situation again. So it will be horrible scenes, Kirk. It will be. If Everton go down, they won't be clapped off. There'll be no lap of honour with the kids. The cousins won't be on the shoulders walking around with the away kit on. It'll be bad, and I really, really hope it doesn't get to that.
Okay, Ian, we need that score prediction. John did mention it. Your record against AFC Bournemouth of late is not great. I think we've won the last 4, but you are at home. And you've got one more chance to try and remain in the Premier League. You've never been outside of it. What's your score prediction for Sunday?
I'm going to lead with this, and I'm going to go Everton 2-0. Like I said, I think a lot of it depends on you guys not turning up, but I think we can play a part in that. I think if one of your guys gets hit in the first minute and then another guy gets hit in the second minute, and the crowd encourage that and the crowd jump on it, I'm hoping a couple of your players who've got Marbella booked next week will just say, I don't want to tackle now, and we'll forget this. But it's football, and it could easily go the other way. But I'll be led by this. I'll be led by Everton 2, Bournemouth 0.
Ian, thank you very much. Across the Park podcast, what have you got coming up between now and kickoff? I know that we also come on your show. Thank you very much for the preview. So just quickly tell us what you've got on the channel and where people can find you ahead of this weekend.
No, thank you very much, Kirk. If everyone's watching this on the Everton hashtag, which I know these guys have put up, that we are at Across the Park PC on Twitter and Instagram, and you'll search us on YouTube. We have the weekly show, which is already out. We've got a show coming up with Kirk on Saturday morning, where Kirk gives us the away preview and what he thinks coming down to Goodison or coming up to Goodison is going to be like. And that was a really good show for 30 minutes. There's possibly going to be an instant match reaction on Sunday, but I can't guarantee it. I think if the worst happens, then I can't see how we do that. But failing that, we're going to go into the summer and have some really good content. So any Everton fans who are just discovering us on this channel, we're over at Across the Park PC.
And the details are in the description below, and we'll also tweet out the content that we're included in over the weekend as well. Ian, wish you all the best. We obviously want to get a positive result ourselves as well, but hopefully both teams can be smiling at the end of full time at Goodison Park. But between now and kickoff, thank you very much for coming on this match preview.
Guys, thanks very much. All the best.
Cheers.
Cheers, Ian.
Thank you there to Ian from podcast, John. We're going to talk more about the Cherries now, but there are a couple of things that the fans that are watching either live or watching back, what can they do, John, to support the channel?
Well, they can certainly just like the video. That definitely helps. And also subscribing. We're at over 1.5K now. Every subscription, every like definitely helps bring eyes and views to the channel. And we're here to give you guys a second opinion. And if you enjoy it, please do stick around.
Plenty more content to come on this match preview. And we want your score predictions later on. Let's shift the focus to Bournemouth. Last weekend, John, it was a third loss in a row. It felt a little bit like Chelsea. I don't think we were completely that bad. I felt at times in the first half, Man United were comfortable. They scored early. It felt like a training match, but then we grew into the game. We had our moments. Probably should have scored from a few chances we created. But Manchester United, they took all 3 points. It was their first win on the road in 3. First time they scored on the road in 3. 1-0 to Manchester United, and we're still stuck on 39 points.
Yeah, I was much more pleased with that performance, though. I think in general, I think to be fair, the Crystal Palace game was, both Crystal Palace games have been 2 of our worst 3 performances of the season. So it was very difficult to go down from that game. But yeah, obviously the early goal was disappointing. The very frustrating thing about that was the likes of Lewis Cook and David Brooks early on were clearly rusty because they kept giving the ball away and doing it in our own third, and you can't keep doing that. The build up to their goal starts with David Brooks having the ball, getting tackled in his own third, clearing the ball about 5 yards outside the penalty area to Eriksson, who then has the freedom of Dean Court to put a ball into the box. Senesi is a little unlucky, and it needs a hell of a lot of athleticism from Casemiro to put the ball in the back of the net. After that, for the next 65, 70 minutes, I don't think Man United had a shot from inside our penalty area. It wasn't until right towards the end of the game where things opened up significantly that they actually started creating half-decent chances. I think we limited them very well. Our defensive organisation was good. It could have been slightly better, but I think for the most part, it was very good. The frustration was that we weren't really creating any clear-cut chances, and the only really good chance we made of the whole game fell to Kiefer Moore towards the end, with Dango Ouattara coming in and putting in a lovely through ball that Kiefer Moore definitely should have done better with. Admittedly, David De Gea is probably one of the best one-on-one goalkeepers in the world, but I think he could have done better with it. Having said that, I was quite pleased with the performance overall, considering a number of the players that we had out. But I think it's telling the Bournemouth Twitter space that you get very mixed reactions from that game, and the game against Chelsea as well. In terms of, I do wonder what people are expecting from us at times. Now, admittedly, Manchester United weren't in the best form of away games, as you mentioned, but without getting too cliche, this is Man United we're talking about. And the fact that a lot of fans are probably disappointed that we didn't come away with anything from that game is, one, a credit to the progress that the club has made, but two, I think it's also, we do need to keep our expectations in check at times, because it's quite easy that we're safe now to want more and more and more. And with the ownership model looking good, we want more and more and more. But we are still the smallest fish in this very, very big pond. I think progress is good, but it is slow. So I'm hoping to see more from the next game against Everton.
Yeah, and as I said, I came away from that game. I suppose I came away a little bit frustrated because I felt like there was an opportunity to get something from that fixture. Yeah. Again, you look at the game and you see some strange tactical decisions, substitutions. You're looking at Jack Stacey sitting on the bench, and I'm not going to sit here, John, and say that I think Jack Stacey is at this elite level, but he is a right back, and I'm not being told by anyone that he's a worse right back than Chris Mepham. I'm not being told he's a worse right back than Vinya. We crossed the ball 3 times in that first half from Adam Smith. I mean, Adam Smith, actually, while I'm talking about him, had one of his best games that I've seen him this season from a progressive point of view. It was so good to see him advance. It was rolling back the years. He's putting the ball in the box, and you've got your best header of the ball on the bench. And then you bring that person on and you take Adam Smith off and you put a left back on who's going to cross the ball differently. I just think that there are some experimenting. I think Gary O'Neill's said that he's experimenting and trying stuff, but he's trying stuff, John, that I know is not going to be an identity or a plan next season. That is what's bothering me, and I don't see where that experimenting in these last 2 or 3 games are taking us into next season. I don't see it.
No, and I will grant you, putting Vinya on at right back was a bonkers move. It really was. And as you pointed out later on, to have Adam Smith having a relatively good game going forward, putting in some good crosses, to not have your main sort of recipient of those crosses on the pitch, as much as Moore did miss a sitter a few games back, he did also score a wonderful header against Spurs from an Adam Smith cross. To then bring Kiefer Moore on, and just after that take Adam Smith off to put Vinya on, who is a left back playing a right back, who is not going to cross the ball. It's not that he's going to cross it differently. He's just not going to cross it. It's not going to happen. He's not going to get far enough forward to then turn back and cross. And I don't think we really did cross the ball at all when Kiefer Moore was on the pitch. I don't think we put one cross in once Kiefer Moore got on the pitch. So, yes, there's a lot of jumbled up thinking in a number of his decisions, and I totally agree that sometimes he makes completely baffling choices and completely wrecks his substitutions at times. But at the same time, he's also made incredible substitutions in moments. And I think I would go back to the Nottingham Forest game, as much as that is way back in the past when we were 2-0 down. But one change in player and a change in formation, we went from 2-0 down to 3-2 up. So I think that because it has been commented definitely by a reporter or two, I'm sure, that Gary O'Neill has 4 games where he knows he's safe and can try things. He can be a little bit experimental. He can do this and that. And I understand that, but that is what pre-season is for. You shouldn't really be sort of trying a few wacky changes in the middle of games that you could do better in. And also, as you mentioned, I think, while I understand your point of view, I think it's maybe a bit easier to stress sort of like how important a place is at this point when we all would have taken 17th. But at the same time, every point, a position does get you another million or so. So it's, extra wins would have been great. And picking different formations, picking different players, picking different non-wacky substitutions might have done us a bit better in some of these games. But at the same time, I'm far too in the position where I didn't think we'd stay up this season. So the fact that we are is just sort of like, just Gary, do what you like at this point, but just don't embarrass us. And he did against Crystal Palace. So that was what I was very frustrated about.
Yeah, and we got to that 39 points, and you can remember that Gary O'Neill came out and said that that's going to be enough. Now, I was saying that on Twitter, but I can say that I'm just a fan, and I said 39 is going to be enough. I mean, it looks like 35, 36 is going to do it, and a lot of us predicted that way ago, a couple of months ago. But Gary came out and said that's enough after the Leeds, Southampton, and West Ham week, and then obviously last weekend after Manchester United, he pretty much said in so many words that it's been a struggle to motivate the players once they got to the mountain. They pushed them hard in that week. We achieved what we needed to do, and it's been hard to motivate them. That might not bother some people. Like you said, John, some people said it's a miracle we finished above 17th. It bothered me, which is, again, why I think like I get a little bit frustrated, because there are points to be had. There was an opportunity, John, that we could have got our best points total. I mean, there's been fans like myself that have been critical of this appointment, and he could have outdone Eddie Howe. And we were in a position to do that. Now, we might not even get to 40 points. Points, positions, money. Our best position could have been 11th. Now it's 13th. Potentially, if we lose on Sunday, John, we're 16th. We've achieved the objective that was set out. I just don't know if I like hearing the words, and this will come again with more learning of the media and Gary just thinking about what he's saying, that the players have basically took their foot off the gas and it's been hard to motivate them since we got to 39 points.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. I definitely do. What I would look at, and it's something I don't know whether you could look it up while I'm talking, is to look up what our first Premier League season under how that finished. What were our fixtures ending? Because if memory serves me, we beat Aston Villa, but that was our only win for about 9 games or something towards the end of the season. It wasn't pretty when we got close to safe. We kind of completely switched off. And as much as I wasn't on Twitter, and I also wasn't anywhere near as involved in the Bournemouth fan base at that point, so I have no idea what the conversation was like. I would be surprised if there was quite so much talk about the players completely shutting off. Now, admittedly, and this is one of the things why I feel as though Gary O'Neill gets a lot more shtick than Eddie Howe does, is because the play is not as exciting. It's just, if you went to a Bournemouth game at Eddie Howe, you were probably going to be entertained for a good chunk of the match because of how fluent the football was and how fun it was as a sport to watch under Bournemouth. And that's just not been the case quite so much under Gary O'Neill. But I do think that when you consider what Eddie Howe was consistently building on during his time at Bournemouth, and that he had 3 seasons before he got into the Premier League, and he had such a tight-knit group, and everything was just for him. He ran the club. That, you know, Gary O'Neill is in a very different position. So the second point to sort of caveat that is that I would just look at Arsenal. And that Arsenal had a very similar situation in terms of there was a massive mountain to climb that Arteta was able to push the entire squad towards that singular goal of, we're out of all the competitions, we can go for the Premier League. And as soon as it looked like they couldn't get it, or they were pushing and they pushed so far they got exhausted, they completely collapsed. And you've only got to look at them losing against Nottingham Forest and drawing against Southampton, all the results that should never have happened for a team that's fighting for the Premier League. They too almost reached the goal, and as soon as they sort of nearly got there, they just collapsed. And I do think that it is still human nature to sort of have been spent 9 months working towards a goal, and you've achieved the goal, and then they go, okay, can you just keep going for another few miles? I've just run the marathon. Why do you want me to run another couple of miles? We wouldn't do that. We'd stop. So it's very different in a spectator sport like football, where there are people coming to watch you and paying to watch you. So you should provide a performance. But I have a significant level of understanding for a team that has achieved their great ambition and kind of gone, and then just stopped for a bit. And while I was very frustrated against Palace, I thought actually the Chelsea and Man United performances were worthy of what they have done so far this season.
I have an answer to your question. In our first Premier League season, in our last 5 games, we got 1 draw. However, we did score in every fixture of those games. So yes, and we also scored 8 more goals that season as well. So And it was pretty much a League One side, if we're being completely honest, that had
Yeah.
grown through the Championship. But fair point. But then obviously Eddie Howe kicked on, and we then got our best ever finish in the Premier League the season after that. Let's talk about a positive before we look at that predicted 11 for Bournemouth. We saw it on the screen earlier, but we'll have a look at what the side might look like. No idea what the side's going to be, John. I'm not going to lie. Not sure what formation's going to be, but we'll take a look at it. Sabani, he came out the game with credit against Manchester United. I know the club have dropped some videos about his performance. He looks comfortable on the ball. He looks everything the club hoped he would be. I'm sure he will grow. What does he look like in our formation and identity next season? Is he in a back three? Is he in a back four? That conversation is for another day. But Sabani did look good the other day, and that was a positive from the game.
Yes, I know AFCB Tacticos, who I follow, who also puts together some decent sort of multiple tweet slots of what he thinks of certain performances, was very glowing of Zabani's performance. I wasn't blown away because I do think that, you know, a defender moving the ball out well from a Man United press is not a compliment. Man United's press is just awful at the moment, but he looked very comfortable on the ball. And when you look at how he did against Crystal Palace, I thought he looked well out of his depth. So for him to come into this Man United game, he looked a lot more comfortable, and he did dribble with the ball well. And his passing was sensible. I think that Senesi's range of passing and ability on the ball is better, but at the same time, you need a good mixture. And Zabani also looks very physically able to handle this league. So I think and fingers crossed we do keep him. If we've got a Senesi-Zabani partnership as our regular back two, middle of the back four going forward next season, that's a really, really good pairing that I would love to see develop, because I think there's real ability between both of them physically and technically. So I would be very excited to see more of that going forward.
Couple of fullbacks might be needed in that formation
Definitely.
as well, but don't disagree with that. Let's look at this predicted 11 that SofaScore are putting on for the fixture on Sunday. So they are going for Neto, Adam Smith, Zabani, Senesi, Lloyd Kelly, Lewis Cook, Jefferson Lerma, Dango Utara, Philip Billings in there, Jaden Anthony, Dominic Solanke. Look, there was no Rothwell at the weekend against Manchester United. No Philip Billing. Don't know if they were injured. I don't believe I saw anything saying they were injured. I think Billing left Dean Court and came back for the end of season awards, John. That's the lineup. Do you think it's far away? I mean, there's no Christie in there.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. I think according to, I think I mentioned it earlier, premierinjuries.com, you got Joe Rothwell had been managing something for a while, and I think because we were safe, and maybe he just felt as though it had reached the point where he was like, I don't really have to take any risks, so I'm going to give Lewis Cook an opportunity, who was okay, but I think there's been a decent amount of chatter that Lewis Cook is a player that I think a lot of fans feel as though we could maybe get a bit of money out of before his contract runs out, which is a shame, because I think if it hadn't been for so many injuries, he really could have progressed, but he'd still be a capable squad member if we kept him. But he did okay in the game, I think, had some good moments. And then Billing was a late dropout apparently, but you know, we'll see whether he comes back in for this game. Ryan Christie, I think, could be, you know, I say due a rest. There's nothing to rest for, but Ryan Christie has had a lot of consistent starts, and it was nice to see David Brooks. It was brilliant to see David Brooks start. I got my wish. I did want him to start a home game before the end of the year, before the end of the season. He did start. I was expecting him in versus Chelsea, but he started against United. Anthony playing the full 90, I believe, which is rare. Was good to see, although
I thought
he needs
Anthony
a bit more
struggled.
support. Yeah, he needs more support on the left. But he was going up against Aaron Wan-Bissaka, who is one of the best 1v1 defenders in the league. So it was always going to be tough for him, but he did need to combine a little bit better with some of his players. I would prefer to see, if Philip Billy cannot play and Traore is still out, which he may or may not be, I would prefer to see David Brooks start as a 10 rather than on the right-hand side. I think forcing Brooks to start on the right and come inside requires him to do too much defending, more work going backwards than I want to see from him. And I think when he came inside, there were moments I was really, really pleased with what David Brooks was doing, combining quite nicely. I would like to see Ouattara back in straight up. I think I would just like to see him start more often. But he's still young and he's still learning, and he still has moments where he just can't make a 5-yard pass. So the quicker he gets into full fitness, the better. And I mean, heck, if Semenyo's fit, I'd probably start him over Solanke. I just would like this opportunity right at the end of the game, and I take this purely from a kind of almost like a FIFA/Football Manager look of things, is that give a few players some game time. That's what he did with Anthony and Brooks. But at the same time, I would much rather, regardless of the team, I'd rather see a win against Everton. I'd rather us win. So if he has the opportunity to put out his strongest lineup, I don't see why you shouldn't.
Yeah, I just want to see a lineup that we can recognise, we can relate to, and that we can try and get a positive result and finish the season positively, get to that 40 points. It'd be such a good achievement to get to that 40 points. And then, like you've said, pre-season's there to find out what this new squad, there's going to be players going out the door, there'll be players coming in, what is going to be our general identity and how we're going to play next season. We might need to adapt that at times tactically, but we need to have a way and a style that we can learn, practice through pre-season in some friendlies and fit the mold of the squad with players that fit that identity and get some positive performances, because Bill Foley's talked about the club becoming more progressive, advancing, being a mid-table side and beyond in the future. So yeah, let's see what that lineup is. And it was good to see David Brooks, but I did feel, John, that David Brooks's quick thinking that he's had in the past and that split second moments was not quite there. But that's just match fitness, that's just match moments. It's going to take time. He's had a few games with the academy, but look, we're talking about Premier League level here. We know what he's capable of, and I'm sure another pre-season, more friendlies, and he can be a real asset for us next season.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that during our time in the Championship under Parker, obviously that was before he, was given his diagnosis and was unable to join us for some time. He was wasted on just being told to stick to the right wing and really didn't have much freedom. What I saw in the moments that I was pleased to see from Brooks against Man United was his freedom, was the fact that he was allowed to take up space that the left back's not going to follow him inside. And that's what, when Junior Stanislas was fit and working at his best, he was incredible at just finding space. He would never stick to the left wing. He just came inside and just stood when no one was near him, picked up a pocket of space, played a killer pass, took a shot from 30 yards that fired in off the crossbar. I did like bits of what I saw of David Brooks, but then, his lack of match sharpness was blindingly obvious. And, his mistakes too really led to the first goal. So, led to the only goal. So there's still more to come from him. And preseason is going to be interesting in terms of, in terms of that practice, in terms of getting the players sort of even more familiar with what Gary O'Neill in the end wants from his side. It's very clear that there's been about 3 different iterations of what a Gary O'Neill side has been over the course of this season. He's had to change and had to just be defense first for a good chunk of the first half of the season. But when he had 6 months to train with the players as much as possible, it really didn't work out for the next month after it. So I'm hoping to see an assistant manager brought in, or another coach, someone from outside the club to give their view on things to support Gary O'Neill, and just a structure that can work more frequently in the next season. Because at the moment, I think I know what I'm going to see from a Gary O'Neill side, and then I just don't. So I'm waiting to see what a more solid plan is from O'Neill, rather than this little bit of experimenting or trying to be a bit more build up from the back that we have done in the last few games, which hasn't really worked as well as I think he would like it to have done. So still in preseason will be very interesting. And thankfully, we can be safe in the knowledge that regardless, we will have a Premier League pre-season in a few months. So that's fantastic to look forward to.
We will, and that is to come. And for the last time this season, I'm giving you a 1-minute warning because it's your turn and your time to tell us what you think the score will be on Sunday between Everton and AFC Bournemouth. One more time, what is your score predictions? Place those score predictions in the chat and we will show them on the screen. And me and John will also tell you ours. On Sunday, it's a full fixture list, 38 out of 38. Aston Villa take on Brighton, Everton against Bournemouth, Leeds fighting for their lives as well at home to Tottenham, Brentford against the champions Manchester City, Manchester United take on Fulham, Chelsea against Champions League now, Newcastle United, Leicester fighting for their lives versus West Ham at home, Arsenal versus Wolves, Southampton already gone against Liverpool, Crystal Palace against Nottingham Forest. John, are there going to be twists and turns on Sunday? We're going to be there at Goodison Park. We're going to hope that Bournemouth can have an influence on the day. Are there going to be twists and turns?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be surprised if there weren't. I could definitely see Leeds taking the lead against Spurs. I could certainly see Everton scoring an early goal. I can't see Leicester getting anything from West Ham, but you never know. That might stay 0-0 for a while.
Can you not? Because West Ham have got a European Cup competition coming up.
Yeah, but they've got 2 weeks until it happens. And they played a pretty darn strong lineup against Leeds, and they had the semi-final. They had the second leg of their semi-final to play only a few days later, a few days before. Either way, they had opportunities to rest and they didn't. So, and the physicality of the West Ham side, I from what I've seen of Leicester, particularly when you saw what they did against Newcastle, I just thought West Ham will just break through that. They'll just battering around their way through that defense. I could be wrong, but we'll see. As I mentioned earlier, I do see Everton being the team staying up, and I see that. I think that is purely going to be because the other two are going to fail to win, more so than necessarily them getting the 3 points against Bournemouth. For my prediction,
going early.
I've seen a couple of people who agree with me already in the chat. I'm going to go for a 2-2. I think it will be. I think talking of twists and turns, I could very definitely see us going a goal down and then picking it back up again, or vice versa, as it would have to be if it was 2-2. But yeah, I think there'll be a few twists and turns at Goodison Park. But I think I think Everton will be good enough to make sure they get a result, but I'm not entirely sure that they are good enough to get the win, regardless of how flip-floppy the team might be.
Score draw for John, and there might be some nail biting inside Goodison Park because that might not be enough if Leicester can somehow beat West Ham. Let's go into the chat for those score predictions. Davey, Australia calling. Thanks for the preview, guys. Austria. Sorry. Thanks for the preview, guys. Think we could sneak this one 2-1 to the Cherries. Apologies for that, Davey. Thank you very much. Mark Singleton is going for 2-1 to the Cherries. Matthew Gales agreeing with John. It's a 2-2. Gene, how are you? 2-1 to the Cherries. Mark Cole is also going for 2-2 goals. Paul is going for 2-0 to the Cherries. Solanke and Adam Smith. Chris Hubble, let's go for a Bournemouth away win for his brother. Jack Birthday. Happy birthday to your brother, Chris. Last chance, Sammy. The famous 3-1. You never know.
Could be. Wouldn't be surprised.
You just never know. Chris Hubble's going to beat that by 1, though, Sammy, and go for 4-1 to the Cherries. And I just don't want to see us lose 4 games in a row when we got to 39 points. And I also think it's going to be a draw. I think I predicted 1-1 on the opposition preview I did for Across the Park podcast. So I'm going to go for 1-1. Then hopefully there's smiles for everyone in the stadium. There's no dramas. There's no instances. We can all go home happy and enjoy the summer. That would be the best scenario for me. I also want to spend this moment in the match preview. It's been fantastic all season. More content to come after pre-season. We'll do some sort of interactive videos and streams where you can get involved. But I do want to thank you lovely people, the monthly members, and anyone who's donated to the channel all season for allowing us to do these streams. Thank you so much. You can become a member or donate at buymeacoffee.com/Cherries Red Army. Absolutely no problem if you don't, but please do smash the like button. Jon, another fantastic hour we spent with the fans. For anyone who's watched this back on replay, thank you very much. Put your score prediction in the comments. Your final summary on your final match preview this season.
My final summary is mission accomplished. We set out to stay up and we've done it. It's not been great at times and there have been some significant worries along the way. But above all else, we will be playing Premier League football next year and there are definitely things to look forward to. So yeah, I'm feeling positive. Looking forward to a hopefully not as hot as last year summer, yeah, bring on next season.
At the death, in the final moments of the game, Stephen Dyer goes in with a 1-0 to the Cherries. Dom Solanke penalty. Would you believe it? The scenes. And Everton could still stay up. Jon, thank you very much. I'm going to see you on Sunday because we will be there at the game. We'll get you hopefully a match day vlog at some point, maybe Bank Holiday Monday. I don't know. It's going to be a really long day. I'll try my best, but we'll get the match day vlog out and we'll try and get a reaction out after the game as well. But thanks very much, Jon. I'll see you Sunday, buddy.
Yeah, see you Sunday.
Thank you to you, the fans, for checking out this match preview. Do make sure you stay tuned to Cherries Red Army, hit that notification bell, and do make sure you support the team wherever you are in the world. But between now and Sunday, stay well, look after yourself, come on the Cherries, one more game to go, then we can all relax and think about next season. From me and Jon, we'll see you on the next one. Up the Cherries.
You Reds!
You Reds! One more year, Lerma.